for the September 18th, 2024 meeting of the Montpelier-Roxbury
Do you have a presentation?
Board of School Directors. Looks like we just got the shorter agenda.
Don't worry about it.
Although we're happy to give you a few minutes to chat if you want.
Fine.
I do want to just start the meeting with a reminder that we have a continuing vacancy on the board. One of the Roxbury seats, Kristen Gettler, resigned in July, and we are looking for a member of the Roxbury community to step up and do some great service and help Red out, because Red's carrying a big heavy load there. So if anyone is interested, you can shoot an email to the board, school board at npsbt.org, or me at Jim Murphy at the same domain. And I'm sure that any of us would be happy to talk to you about it if you have questions and are thinking about it. So please, if you're interested and a member of Roxbury, we are really looking for someone to fill that role. It's very important that Roxbury have full representation in these committees. Public comment. The public comment is a period where we take feedback and input from the public on whatever topic members of the public want to bring to our attention. We do not respond in real time, but it is very important to our decision-making process and to just letting us know about how people feel, issues we may not be aware of, etc. So even though we will not give you a response in real time, we are listening, and it's very important to our decision-making process. Do we have any public comment? I'll start with the room. Anyone in the room? No. And online, I've not seen any hands. Okay. So we'll next move to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda is where we kind of approve en masse items like minutes of prior meetings, draft agendas, etc., that don't really require discussion unless board members feel an item should be pulled off and have questions about it or concerns. It allows us to do things more quickly. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I will second that.
Good. Any discussion or questions?
I have a
Okay.
point. The superintendent's report, let me grab it, has a little bit of information about the transition for Roxbury Elementary School students to Union Elementary. And there's been a lot of great work and a lot of positive responses and communications. The last bullet, though, that UES teachers called caregivers in the first 2 weeks to discuss how each child is settling into their classroom is just not accurate. I think there have been a couple of conversations over the phone, and I know that there have been a number of emails and polite and kind and supportive dialogue via email, but there haven't been calls regarding each child. I just wanted to correct that one little point.
Good note for accountability committees.
Yes. Great. Thank you for pointing that out, Brett.
Tim.
Oh, Tim.
Hi. We received, I think last week or something, a inquiry to the board about the cell phone policy of the school and as a potential item for discussion. And I was just curious if that might be something we put on a future agenda. I thought I'd just tee it up for conversation.
Yeah, we could actually, well, actually, when I went to the high school open house, there is a, do you want to my understanding is there's a committee that's been put together. to
Committee that's
study
put
it.
together inside of the high school with, I think, 11 students are on it, several faculty members, and Jason, I believe a few parents too. I'm
Yeah.
not positive on that though. And they are researching and looking into current use, what students think, what faculty thinks, and they're doing a whole process internally around that. The other thing I would say to the board is that's going to get taken up by the legislature this year. Hands down, we just know it will.
Yeah.
So you may just want to wait and see what the legislative body does. Just another thought.
And is that something does that committee have a timeline? The one that's in the high school?
No,
Okay.
I'm not on it, so I don't know specifically, but I think Jason was planning a in-depth study.
Yeah. Because that's the kind of thing we could ask to have as a presentation
Presentation, yeah,
Yeah,
to the board
that's,
when it's
Absolutely.
concluded.
absolutely.
Okay,
that's what I was thinking too. I mean, my recollection of the open house is he was planning to have it concluded sometime this year for.
Oh, yeah.
possible-
Oh, yeah.
Possible action.
I just don't know. when this
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
No, and that's a subject that's near and dear to my heart too. So my recommendation is that we give that committee a little time and then have some sort of, have them come to us and give some sort of update and report. And then we also obviously will follow this in the legislature as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that seems like a good way to deal with it because it's obviously something of concern and there's already movement occurring.
and for folks who don't know, there's a great article in 7 Days, not this week, I think, but last week. It was the cover story. And it has a lot of, it talks about our neighboring districts that have initiated bans and then interviews different health professionals, including my sister-in-law, who's a pediatrician in the South Burlington area. And so it has a lot of really great information for us as well as we continue to educate ourselves.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot of information on this generally. It's a big topic right now, so.
Libby, if legislature took action on it, do you think it would be for the upcoming school year?
I don't know. It's a good question. My hunch would be that they would be for, not this school year we're in right now, but
But-
usually with things like that, it influences the next school year.
25, 26.
Yeah. You know,
I don't remember that bill from last year. what the
there was
timeline
one for a while. Do you remember that
284?
bill? There was one that was trying to outlaw all social media in schools, including district usage and cell phones. It was all encompassing.
And the use of technology for educational purposes. That's
Right.
also referenced actually in this article, 7 Days article.
Yeah, that's what sunk it. the
Yeah.
All technology opt out.
Looks like S-284. Yeah.
But usually with bills that don't require a whole lot of money, which this one, and they say the next school year.
I was just thinking like if there was years in the future, then we would wanna kind of do our own deliberation now, but if it's next school year, then there's really less for us to work on.
If the outcome is that there's a statute on banning or limiting or whatever, and there needs to be a policy written, then the benefit of waiting is that VSBA will write that policy and the board will have something to work off of. They'll write like a model policy.
Yep.
Any more questions on the consent agenda? Just noticing that everyone's kind of on their cell phones. We're talking about cell phone ban.
I was just curious, Libby, I haven't seen the roots and wings yet in just the meeting documents. Have they just not started?
The first Roots and Wings went out today.
Okay,
That's why.
that's what I figured.
And when it came out, I sent it to Emma saying, make sure this gets in the next board packet.
Great,
So it just started today.
thank you.
Excellent. Anything else? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we are skipping the student presentation around? Totally fine by us? Okay, great.
We just lost our facilities director to a phone call.
Yeah,
You could do the policy monitoring right now.
Okay.
Oh,
so-
let's do that.
Yeah, let's do policy monitoring. Oh, he's back. Well, let's do policy monitoring. So start it. So mixing up the agenda a little, do we have approval of 3 policy monitoring reports? A23, community engagement and vision, A24, board and superintendent relations, and FM 101 budget.
Sounds like a radio.
That's a radio station. Do I have a motion to approve those policy monitoring reports?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion or questions? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh, wait, sorry. Looks like Tim raised his hand.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just one of them said we had a little bit more work to do, I think is the community engagement and vision. And I was just wondering, what exactly is that? I'm not sure I followed that.
Yeah, so last summer, the board worked on our top 3 priorities. And we solidified and really refined 2 of the 3, the academic excellence and the belonging and wellness. So they like flow from our vision. They have, here's what we mean by these things. And then they have specific indicators of success that we can measure. And then our third one, community engagement and communication, we have it fits within our vision and is flowing from the visioning and process that we did leading up to that work last summer, but we don't yet have indicators of success. And the equity committee, I think in the spring, volunteered to take on we'll draft this up and bring it to the board. So that's why that's not complete yet.
Okay.
And the equity committee is working on that now.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Andrew?
Evening. So you all have received the facilities report. Any specific questions that you have?
I know.
Yes, Joe.
The 3 acre, can you explain what that is?
So-
And is my understanding, like, if we don't do it, there's some sort of penalty or something?
Well, we have to do it. It's new stormwater policy, about 3-4 years old. And it is any piece of property over 3 acres has to meet 50% of new stormwater regulations. So the state actually allocated money to do that project. So, and it actually started back in the day with Michelle. So we're all set to that. They had some problems with the bidding on their end. So the bids came in really high and we're really late. So they're just going to rebid it this fall, late fall, early winter for next spring.
And does it change like parking or fields?
No, it basically enlarges up the stormwater collection area that we have.
That was my
Other questions? Brett?
There's something about a well protection plan at RVS that needs to be completed. Is that something that can be completed by you and your team, or is that
We're working with Engineering Ventures on that. Basically, there's different inspections and things, but we are working with the state on that, updating that. We're actually meeting down with the engineer. I'm meeting with the engineers next week on that one. So it's in the process. So it's really just updating what was in place, but it's complete. Usually every 3 years, you just sort of do a not random, but a very quick, we contacted people, we know everybody, nothing has changed. This is a real comprehensive, how do you shut the system off? How do you turn it back on? What's our contingency plans? Things like that.
is that something that you would recommend is done on a 5-year window, 10-year window, or?
No, this comprehensive because it's just because the well was put in, back in the 80s, I think. It's just been so long and the paperwork over the years is sort of thinned out. So we're just sort of pulling the paperwork. We being the school district and the state are pulling our paperwork back together.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it'll be good to have an updated.
Yeah.
Some of the contacts. The engineer that put the last report isn't even in business anymore. So it's a good thing to have done.
Yeah.
I have a few questions, but first I just wanted to say thanks, take the opportunity to say thank you because the report is incredibly comprehensive and it's such a great and valuable resource for us to keep coming back to throughout the year. And also for leading up the team that is keeping our buildings in such great shape, as you noted in the report, even with all of the challenges we had last year, really moving things forward and keeping them to be like wonderful places to work and learn.
They work very, very hard.
Yes, they
Very
do.
hard.
So first want to take the opportunity to say thank you. And then I do have a few questions. The deadline for spending all of the ESSER money is this month, right?
It's at the end of this month. We're closing out the projects for the 30th. We got the invoice for the union work. It was, I want to say on time and on budget, a little under budget, but we ran into a few more expenses over at the Main Street than we anticipated, or we're planning for, I should say. But I think it's going to sugar out well. Whether we have to close the projects out by the 30th. If we have extra money, there is an opportunity to earmark it. We have to work with the state a little bit on that and really define it. Like we want to buy this and we just can't get it in the next 2 weeks. We're going to get it in 2 months from now. And they don't want it to drag on forever, but we'll know by the end of the week where we sit with regards to that.
How much is left?
If there's any left over, but I'm glad to see that essentially they hit the budget that we were planning for on Union. So my hope is it's the same, and hopefully ideally we don't have much money left over because we didn't that means they spent the money that we allocated to do it on the work they anticipated. So
right, we want to spend all that money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we get a chance to do anything to the playground at MSMS?
We replaced, I think there's an image in there, that the old retaining wall that was falling down.
Okay.
We replaced that. We put in new sidewalks, and up in the corner outside the cafeteria, we had some picnic tables during COVID that were great. The school really liked them, but it was sort of sitting on dirt and they got kind of muddy and messy. So we put in a proper set of stairs and some proper drainage up in that area so people could keep their toes dry.
Okay, great. And then I wanted to also ask about the windows because it's been on the list for a while. And I did the math to figure out it would cost about $2 million to replace every single window, right?
I think I think if you put that out to bid, that's probably not a bad ballpark.
Yeah.
If you said, we're going to do them all at once, if you start breaking it and
right.
going over years, that number falls apart very quickly. But that's a good number, but a good scope to keep in mind that it's a big project. It's a
really big project.
It's a big project.
And it also looks like in our capital plan that they are really the only things we're planning on spending money on in the capital plan. Is that correct?
Well, I do think that I need to work with the Building and Energy Committee to really talk about that, because we were fortunate that we did earmark some money for roofs and we took care of the cafeteria roof and the auditorium roof. So we're not going to be coming in on Monday morning to wet floors anymore, certainly in those two. But we do need to think about the roof here, the rest of this main roof at the high school. It is not currently leaking, but it is at the end of its useful life. So I think that's a good conversation for the Building and Energy group to really weigh those pros and cons of what's the next, where's our focus next.
And what would your opinion be? Would you say roof?
My opinion would be to listen to the group and find out what everybody else's opinion is.
You're the expert. I think the group is going to want to know what you think.
Well, like I said, I think there's more things to talk about, and it's going to make sure we have everything in line.
How urgent of a need is the Windows update?
Union Elementary, we need to stabilize the windows the paint on the windows in the inner courtyard. We have pre-K kids in there. Those windows are, the paint is old
Yeah.
and bad, and it gets beat by the sun. We actually, when we did our inspection, we went back there, and our recommendation, and I talked with the State Department of Health of, we aren't gonna be able to scrape and paint those windows, so I do a weekly walk around to look for paint chips and things like that to see if they're deteriorating even worse. And fortunately, this was the first year it was ever brought up to our attention, and I've been doing it, like I said, I do weekly walks around the inside perimeter there, and it hasn't, it's not like things are flaking down onto the ground. I found less than a quarter inch chip today.
Okay,
So, but that if not replacement, at the very least, the paint needs to be stabilized back there. And I have an appointment with a painter just to get their sense of what are we looking at here? Because it's what they do that all the time. They're lead certified, and they know what is needed to get in there, scrape to not resistance, I forget the term they use, but scrape it, paint it, prime it, and get it stabilized.
okay,
That I think we definitely need to do this coming summer.
The roadside MSMS windows are also a priority
Yeah.
for the second floor. Particularly.
paint or replacing?
I think that
Painting's
one's a
less
replacement.
expensive, right?
Yeah, but yes. Oh, yeah. Certainly.
We need to call that custodian to get them open.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. And also, what I'm picturing when we talk about replacing windows is like, do we have kids and teachers sitting in like freezing cold rooms or, in the winter?
So it's interesting that the philosophy on leaking windows has changed since COVID. It used to be, now people look at it and go, oh, good, you're getting more fresh air. So the first time I heard that, I was like, what?
Huh.
But no, we pump a lot of heat. Now, is it the most energy efficient thing to do? No, but
Okay,
again, even if you have the most modern building, you bring 20 kids in from recess on a March day where they're all hot and sweaty, you throw them open the windows, you're
Yeah.
doing things that you wouldn't do on paper in a school building.
because you're in real life.
Because
not on
you're in
paper.
real life. And
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about the learning environment. so-
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
And then there's an awful lot of projects on the upcoming projects list, which I think is great that you just are if there's one place, we're tracking it. But do you have a way of prioritizing? Like, are there any tiers?
No, again, I think that's a building group.
Okay.
Discussion. I think that health and safety is the very first. That always takes precedence. Then anything that's going to disrupt learning and time in the classroom is second, and anything that's aesthetic is unfortunately third.
Yeah.
Says the architect.
That's the
What about
reality.
function too? I always care about function too.
That's the reality of the windows, a leaking roof to priority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. I just have a couple more questions. We have had a number of situations last year where the elementary school couldn't be in school because of pipe bursting.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we can do at the building location or working with the city to?
Well,
Avoid that.
fortunately, our weak link was fixed last year. So one of those was us.
Okay,
The rest of those are out in the street.
okay,
But the good thing is that one weak leak on our end, it's been fixed, and that shouldn't be an issue for another 60 years. But no, not really.
okay,
Nothing we can do.
okay. And then I noticed that you made a note that the softball field was we can't replace it. Does it mean that we have no
There is
longer?
no softball team here.
Okay.
There hasn't been for a couple of years, and I don't believe there's an
I
anticipation
see.
that there will be.
Okay,
There weren't enough girls and they can play on 32's team, so.
Yeah.
okay, all right. And then just one last question. I saw that there's some work has gotten started on the safety updates and the improvements to the track. Can
Yep.
you give us a ballpark on what we've spent so far and how much
Oh.
is left of what this board set aside?
I don't want to do that right now, because off the top of my head, because
Can we put that in the superintendent report?
Not money amounts,
Oh,
just
Sorry.
what
off the
happened.
top of my
what's being
head, we've
done.
spent about 150,000, I'm thinking.
Okay,
We've got the new throwing pads, and the safety netting is here, and it's concrete is there. We're just waiting to move some soil off site, and then we'll reseed that area. So the new discus and shot put pads and safety netting is ready to go. The end line fencing for the, basically for keeping the runners safe during the lacrosse season. We have all the equipment. We decided to wait until after the soccer season because we had to shift the field a little bit. And we wanted to make sure that it worked before we penned it in with fencing, with big screens or big 15-foot screens. So that stuff is on site. Sound system improvement has been made. We've got running mats for the long jump pit. And we've been working with the engineers on the layout, and I think we've got a pretty good layout that we've all walked, myself, Jim, Nate, Nathan, Matt Link. We all went out and said, okay, again, when we plant these big inline fences, that's set. We're not going to dig those up and move them. So we went out and they were very comfortable with it. And I think we're in good shape there. We just have to get some permitting and some documents for bidding that and see where we end up.
Do you think that and it's okay if you can't answer this tonight, but do you think that we have enough allocated to do what is the rest of these safety upgrades and those kind of improvements?
I think we're not in bad shape. I don't think we're in bad shape. We're certainly not going to fall short. I mean, I think like I said, the safety improvements with the throwing events, the end line netting, you're going to see improvements for sure.
Yeah.
Do we get everything? No, but
yeah.
Do we get most of it? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
And we're in a good position to finish it off.
Good. Thank you.
Got some high school questions. It's the first one on the note about the track. And the upcoming projects, it says for the high school track replacement, 1.8 million allocated. Is that just left over?
Oh, is that deep in the body there?
Page 10,
Oh,
one of those.
okay, yeah, no, I apologize, but that was left over.
Okay, thanks. So, yeah. And then on the like flood proofing.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, I can't remember the status of this, but has the electrical service been brought up, or is that?
It is right in my old office. They're going to do the final swap over the in the first week of October when we have our days off here. So that will be completed. That move will be completed by then. FEMA has approved us for about $120,000 worth of flood mitigation for the basement. Flood doors, sump pumps, getting rid of the old bulkhead down there or putting in a waterproof one. But anyway, they've approved that $120,000. We'll have to come up with 10% matching on that, but
So 12,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've received all of our allocation from FEMA, about 170,000. And we should be getting another 15% because they hit some sort of threshold where they take it from 25 to 90, or from 25% obligation on the owner's part to only 10%. So you had to hit some sort of limit, but they've made that cross. So we're at 90% now.
So it's the last sensitive thing in the basement, the boiler room?
Yeah, that's basically the only thing that's down there now. Boiler room and dirt.
And I think I remember you had an idea about potentially waterproofing that room.
Yep.
Is that part of the?
That's part of that 120,000.
Okay, great. So that sounds like you've made a lot of headway.
That'll be done next. It's supposed to be 18 months after the event, but we're gonna get an extension so we can do it during the summer.
Awesome.
Whatever it is. Fine.
So I just have a quick follow-up to that. So how much of whatever repairs and floodproofing kind of things we've done have we had to pay for?
Well, we haven't done any mitigation work yet, so that would be.
Or what will we need to pay for? Is it just that 12,000?
Well, that's what FEMA will pay us. If the building group wants to add on to that, that's a different story, but that's what's planned right now.
Right. Because it was insurance and FEMA has covered everything else.
I don't think I'd say everything else, but the lion's share of everything
Okay.
else. Yeah.
I'm trying to get a ballpark of how much of a financial strain was the flood on the district?
That's better answer for.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good question that we can find the answer.
okay, great. It's something that I think is important for us to consider as we think about the future of this building or a new building or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
All the wrestlings we have to do.
And I think the facilities committee, when it gets going again, is gonna have to wrap its head around like, where we are at now. And what the report that we commissioned said, just in terms of like, what would happen if we had a flood similar to the July 2023 flood or something worse than that.
Yeah.
Because Andrew's made a lot of improvements, a lot of headway since then. So I think we're in a much better condition.
Andrew, am I right in thinking yours is just homeowners that you can only access FEMA money once?
Yeah.
Does that work for
I
us
believe
too?
that is true, and certainly if you don't do, I believe, will allow, if you do mitigation work and something happens again, I believe you have access to it. If you
okay.
don't do the mitigation, they don't pay you twice. But that's,
Something we should probably get clarity on.
yeah.
I think that was part of the folks who presented to us, was it Engineering Ventures or?
Truax and Engineering Ventures, yep.
I feel like they had a piece in there about like there's like a time frame or a percentage amount if you invest back into the,
Yeah.
so there might be something in there.
Well, that's an issue with having to floodproof the building, right? If you improve the value by a certain amount or invest a certain amount of the value, then.
Every time you're putting money into this, there's a certain threshold that the city has put in place. And if we hit that threshold on any kind of improvement here, whether flood related or not, like the roof work would be considered toward that threshold. That once you reach that threshold, then you have to flood proof or you have to raise or something like that.
And it's cumulative, I think.
Yes. Let's think about
The track equipment, we're purchasing equipment and the original, there was a little bit of talk about a structure to store equipment. Can you kind of help us understand the current plan for storing what equipment we have and its vulnerability to?
Well, I'll be honest, that's sort of, we have the large Connex, we have the shed. I'll tell you the truth, we kicked the can a little bit on that because the biggest piece of storage that we would need would be for the pole vaulting pads and all that. And that one with the group, Jim and Matt and I, that piece was sort of the lowest priority, that all these other things needed to take place. And they don't really need that much storing. It really was the mats for the pole vault that would push us over the edge of what we've got now. So without knowing that wasn't going to happen this next year, we haven't put any more thought into that. But once we get through this 3-acre stormwater and the track permitting, every roof we put out here has an effect on stormwater. So we'll have to start pulling that piece together.
Would you not have pole vaulting mats then? Because we have no place to store them.
Well, we haven't been doing pole vaulting yet.
Right, okay.
So it was a sort of, we don't have it now, so that's the last one to sort of bring up to speed.
Got it.
Or bring onto the campus.
I just had one more.
Joe.
I think it's been a while since we talked about it, but the bus, the middle school bus, like traffic, is that still?
Libby, you'd know better than I haven't heard it. I haven't heard much this year.
I think the answer to that is it is what it is.
Yeah.
There are no answers to.
Because we'd have to lose the front lawn basically to like create a bus lane, right?
Yeah, and you lose most of that just to the turning, not even to parking the buses.
And backs up traffic and it's a bit of a mess when the buses come in.
But I think over the last year or two, they've been better at.
We've got our
quickly-
systems
Yeah,
moving.
quickly
Yeah.
loading and
Pretty
quickly
quickly.
unloading, and so it's, I think they queue up before before they turn on the red lights, and when they put on the red lights, they're
Yeah.
on and
Yeah.
off. They got a system.
I've been in the mix of that in the mornings, and it's really not that, you're waiting, but there's also kids getting off of a bus. So let's make sure that the number one priority is that their safety, they can get to school, not necessarily that I need to get home from my commute. It's not, my perspective was not too bad.
Well, I think it's great that there's that crossing guard there.
Yeah.
Because I do. think
Definitely.
There's like a
he
lot of
does a
like
great job.
blind spots and people coming in. Those of us who live in the neighborhood know that at 8 a.m. you don't go that way.
Yeah,
You go down.
that's right.
But I do think it would be a lot harder if there wasn't an actual crossing guard there, actually helping kids, because they'll cross those side streets, and I think that helps a lot. And he's very good about making sure that there's time to get off.
Nobody who loves their job more than Mark.
We get at it.
Scott?
Yeah, Andrew, if I recall, after the flood last summer, there was some like really intensive air sampling in here. And if I remember correctly, fairly quickly, the air was judged to be high
I
quality.
would say it was never even judged not to be good.
Is there any continual air sampling? I don't think I saw anything in the environmental.
No, it's not a standing item. When we have an issue, we actually had a bit of a roof leak from down below in this room. And we got it dried up and fixed and all that, and we had the air sampling. And whenever somebody brings a concern to us, Sue had a question. We had them come down last week or 2 weeks ago, and we did some more. We haven't got the report yet. I've heard the results are good, but I don't have the official report. So it's sort of as a when needed. But we don't have it ongoing.
And then I noticed there was at the end of your note, the sort of executive summary, you mentioned the needs ahead that we've talked about, and then you said unknown environmental concerns. And so what are the needs around unknown environmental concerns?
That's really a piece of, we got PCBs. This year, there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening in the school. So I don't anticipate anything, but you never know. You don't know.
Gotcha.
So-
And when you say you mean there's the PCB testing that we may be doing in the future? not
That's
that
been
we-
bumped to next summer, yeah. So it was supposed to happen this summer, but it got bumped to next summer.
Summer 25.
Yeah. It's bumping so much that the website doesn't keep up with the bumping at this point.
It will be bumped again.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. So, the windows, the PCBs, we'll say I'm testing all the water again this year and all those kinds of things. Those are, I don't anticipate anything, but they're out there and we have to address them when they come up.
And then I also noticed at the end that there's still a head custodian position open at the high school.
Yeah.
Is that a concern of yours that position remains unfilled?
It is. We are very fortunate that Tom Allen steps into that role. I really wish he had someone to take the burden a bit. But Tom is a believer that you gotta get the right person in here. We just don't need a person. You gotta deal with everything. And, we're always looking, he's always recruiting, he's always looking for folks. And he's by no means not wanting to give up the role. We're just making sure that he finds the right person. Because you have to be technical, you have to be personable, you have to be a manager of people, you have to be a manager of time. I don't envy him. I respect him greatly for what he does and how I was able to do it.
Thank you.
No.
More questions?
If you have any specific questions, let me know.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. As always,
Thank you,
much
Andrew.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I just want to reiterate Mayo's comment that the
It's one of the most comprehensive reports we get, so I really appreciate it. Anna did a fantastic job of giving us precise language about what we need to do next.
When we're ready.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, good, okay.
It's one or the other, or both?
Both.
Okay.
First
So
one, first you
option
give
one.
the justification, and then we approve the justification, and then we actually move into executive session. So do I have a motion for?
I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the board's confidential attorney-client communications made to provide legal services to the board would clearly place the board at a substantial disadvantage if discussed in public.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or otherwise? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Since you're on a roll, Jill, you want to just?
And thank you, Anna, for putting this in, because I think last
Yes.
year was a little more.
Yeah,
fun.
thank you.
Thank you,
I
Anna.
move to enter executive session for the purpose of confidential attorney-client communications made to provide legal services to the board under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1F of Vermont statutes, confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body.
We have a second.
Second.
Discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. I think we are off to attorney relations. It protects our confidentiality. It doesn't mean that we're not being transparent, but for certain things, including discussions with attorneys on really any matter, we go into executive session.
Yeah.
It's good practice.
And we are gonna come back.
We are
and
gonna come
continue
back.
the business of the board when we're done.
Yes.
There's a little bit more to do. Yeah. to help us make the decision. And we don't have to, for tonight, what we were just want to do was put those parameters out there and see if there are any other main ones that board members thought should be included. And then basically task individual board members that if you have questions that would help you answer that question, like need or pressure point. An example I could think of is when it comes to the magnet school, we have a study that was done a while ago on a language immersion school. Is that enough to answer your question about whether or not we have a need, or do you have other, are there other ways that other information you'd like in order to help you answer that question? Yes or no? That option 1, yes, there's a need in the district, or option 3, no, there's no need in the district. What does the Roxbury community think? We'll be able to get a lot more of that, get that answered at least partially next board meeting when we're in Roxbury and are gonna set aside some of our time of the board meeting as a community forum to hear from the community. But maybe there's other information you would be looking for in order to be able to help answer that question. And then what is the financial obligation or tax impact the board will ask the community for, is another one that we have to decide, especially given that the main reason we decided to bus kids from Roxbury to attend Union was a big budget pressure. So before we go any further, does anyone have any questions about these parameters?
I like them.
I just a comment on maybe some sequencing too, because the financial obligation tax impact is at the bottom. And
yeah, they're not really in an order. Yeah.
And for instance, if we know that a certain type of magnet school is going to cost a lot of money, like let's not do a detailed study on whether we need it first, because that might not be the best use of resources. For a lot of money that we don't have and can't spend.
I think we should add, we don't just care about what Roxbury community members think. I believe we care about what all of the community think, and so I would just maybe edit number 3 to certainly Roxbury community members have a larger interest because of the fact that the building is in their town, and it's still something I think other community members have feelings about as well.
To that point, was this community forum, which Montpelier obviously is welcome to join in remotely, but is this the only community forum, or will there be a second community forum of some kind in Montpelier? Maybe not necessarily on a typical school board schedule. I don't know what that might look like, but time aside for people to remote in or to come in to Montpelier, or would we, I don't know how we would ask the community if that's something that they would want, if the remoting into Roxbury is not enough of an opportunity. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Right now, that's the only planned community forum. And then we are going to open up I'm just like picking a frame of time, 2-week public comment period where we'll do it'll be a pop-up on our website and it'll be all over social media. Fill out this quick form to tell us what you think, as a way of trying to reach as many different people in different ways. And as you said, anybody can Zoom into the community forum. That will be in a couple of weeks. We also have, and this is getting to another agenda item, so I don't want to go there yet, but we also have the Fall Festival in next Saturday where we could use that as a place of gathering information on this question. But I think what I heard Scott say is maybe we have a fourth parameter that is, what does the Montpelier community think? Because I think it makes sense, not that we want to be separating our two towns within this broader community very often, but given the point you made, Scott, about the Roxbury community, this is a building that is in their community, rather than just getting rid of Roxbury in that line, I would add another question that seems.
Tim.
I'd be curious, I think like 3 of the 5 opportunities were regional in nature, that were presented last meeting. And they may have been theoretical and there's not a desire among the region, but I was struck by the fact that, there's this trend toward regionalization in the state generally. And so to the extent our sort of regional peers are interested in a collaboration along the lines of one of the options that Libby suggested, I think I'd like to know that. So maybe it's some sense of, for the BOCES or the CVCC or the magnet type school, are there others out there, or is it just sort of a non-starter generally? I'd kind of be curious about that.
So that's an example of piece of information that we would be we want to get in order to try and answer that question.
Right, is that what we're doing here, or?
Yeah. What I'm just doing is we're listing those so Libby can go and do a little bit of research.
Okay.
Rather than trying to answer all of them tonight.
Right, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would also, with that question, I would want to know what the board needs as evidence of an answer either way. Is it
right? Is it like survey of the superintendents, or is it enrollment numbers, or what would help? Tim,
I mean, like from my end, for the CVCC, it would be probably talking to the CVCC. I know they're looking for other facilities, right? Some either that entity or the districts that make it up, like the superintendents. Is this a non-starter? Is this something interesting? I think I'm not looking for a deep dive. I mean, the BOCES I thought was the most interesting potential idea, and I know, Libby, you said that there is some opportunity for study there. I think at this point I'm not looking for like some kind of full-blown study or something, just sort of a gut check from the entities that would be potential partners.
Yeah, I think that's what I understand your question. What would the board want is like, I can write an email right now and have an answer for the board by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning from superintendents and telling you that I want to make sure that that is what the board wants. CVCC, you have a board member who's on the CVC board. Would you want the board of CVCC to discuss it? Like, that's a higher level conversation. I'm just curious as to what kind of, for lack of a better word, proof. I don't know how to say that.
I mean, I guess it depends what we're doing here. It's like, I think it's a iterative conversation. If there's an expression of interest, then maybe we would want to follow that up. If everyone's saying these are all terrible ideas, then I don't think we need a lot, but I guess it depends on what the decision we're making with the information is. But these were presented as options, so I'm just trying to, I still haven't figured out how we assess them unless we talk to the regional partners that would be part of them.
I agree with Tim's direction, and it's similar, and I feel the same way I felt when we saw the presentation. Is I need to know what the potential educational purposes, the world of them are, and I don't think the ideas necessarily will come from this board. So what that means to me is, like, however one advertises a school building and asks, what educational purpose would you potentially use it, do with this building? That's what I would like to do, to see what ideas are out there.
So hypothetically, Libby could send an email to superintendents, or maybe not hypothetically, to fellow superintendents in the area and say, this is a resource of our district. If you were the superintendent in my district, what would you do with this building? Is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to rephrase.
I mean, if I was gonna go like rent out an apartment, I know how I would advertise it, right? I don't know how to advertise a school building. I kind of don't think it's an email to the superintendents. I think that's one limited channel, and you also have to be really careful about how you phrase a question to them. So I'm thinking broader, like how does one tell the world that there's this building available in this, beautiful small town, and do you have an educational purpose for it that you would propose to us?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I wonder if that's, does that not, is that the work of the board, or is that the work of I don't know. Is that the board taking away the right of the town to determine what is best for the town? If we were to get a request, if we were to put out an RFP and we got a proposal for, I don't know what kind of educational school or education structure or educational thing, whether it's mental health related or whatever it might be related, is that not taking agency away from the town? And is that what we want to do or not?
There's a tricky chicken and egg thing here. I mean, I obviously think number 3 to me is the most important thing on there. But that being said, maybe then you don't really do due diligence on finding out what's out there. You just kind of rule out the possibilities, which is sort of the direction we're heading in. And then you just move ahead with the dollar offer to the town of Roxbury, because then the town of Roxbury can really get what it would like.
And I think kind of like, I mean, I'd like to filter this through what I think the spirit of the agreement was. And I think the spirit of the agreement was, Roxbury had been running the school for a long time. And when the merger happened, Roxbury essentially gave us the school building with the idea that we would run RVS as part of our district for 4 years. And if it didn't work financially otherwise, and we chose to close the school, we would give that building back unless we had an educational need that would kind of further that use as a school. I'm not sure it was an invite to do a broad fishing expedition for whatever educational use we could find out, putting out an RFP, seeing if someone out, in the 4 corners of New England wants it as an educational use. I think the spirit was that, say we had the money to do an immersion program and the study came back saying that would be a great idea, it would give us the latitude to do something like that. But I'm not sure it was let's scour the 4 corners of New England and see if someone somewhere out there has an idea for an educational use. And I kind of like Tim's idea on some of these regional things. I think a quick email to some superintendents who might be interested, or to, I'm forgetting, Jody, just saying, we thought about this, is this something we should have a further conversation about, or is this kind of a non-starter with you? Just to do due diligence around some of those kind of more obvious ideas, I think makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense to really do a deep dive and just see if there's, someone in northern Maine wants to buy that and turn that into a Waldorf school.
Well, which is what I think Tim was saying, is let's start by asking just around the region if any of these options
Makes sense,
or if they in their, with their own, these are the needs of my district hat on, could say, oh yeah, if there was a outdoor education focused school here, I could definitely see a large population of my, maybe there that exists and we just don't know yet because we haven't asked. So I think, and so then that would be okay, well, given the other parameters we've set for ourselves, financial obligation, what does the Roxbury community think and the Montpelier community think? Maybe we would then go pursue that if there was interest from around. But starting by finding out that interest, I think is useful.
So, Libby, I realize that you created this as a I'm looking at the presentation from 2 weeks ago. You created this as a starting point for the conversation for our board, but how much of this would be sort of ready for prime time, if you will? Like if we were to share this and say, do any of these 4 or 5 options, Northfield or Pain Mountain, whatever they're called now, are any of these appetizing to you? Or, Jody, do any of these, fit within CVCC's vision? And sort of do that with, like, this is a slate that we're considering. Would you be interested in sort of signing on to any of these?
So as I said, 2 weeks ago when I gave that presentation, we have had conversations at the superintendent's table about the BOCES idea and the mental health kind of facility. And there is no desire from other superintendents. That's why I was asking, like, what kind of evidence does the board need for that? Like, I can sure shoot an email so that people can see actual words that superintendents say, but, or maybe not, and say, this is what they replied with. The only one I have not asked Jody directly if she would be interested, and that was the only one that has not come up for conversation before. So that's why I was asking, like, what more evidence, because I talked of that last time. The other thing I did do, because it was a question that was asked at the last meeting, was the magnet schools in Burlington and the language immersion school in Jericho. The question was asked of how many tuition kids have they gotten, or kids who are tuitioned into those building programs over the years that they've been. So I asked John Alberghini, who's the superintendent in Mount Mansfield, and I asked Tom, who's the superintendent in Burlington, how many kids they have gotten for tuition money for those programs. John's answer was that he has a wait list within his district for the programming, and so he doesn't have any room for tuition kids. And then Tom from Burlington's answer was, we barely can keep it afloat financially as it is. We've never gotten a tuition kid for anything in our district, nor has there been any request for it.
They barely can keep the magnet school itself afloat. I see.
So I did get an answer to that question because it was asked and I didn't know the answer last time. So
and so the language immersion, that's the one that there's a wait list
within district.
Within district, so there's not even an option to get tuition.
He didn't, so he said we've never put it out there.
And then what, Sustainability Academy, what are the magnet schools in?
I only know the Sustainability Academy. I don't know what the other one, I think there's another one, but I don't know what it's called.
Because it's like, there's 2 very different answers, and the magnet schools themselves are very different.
Yeah, and that's what we were taught, like, the question was, could we get enough kids to tuition into the school to make it cost effective, I believe was the question. And the town of Burlington, which is a metropolis compared to Montpelier, even to Montpelier and Roxbury, has never received a request for kids to transfer in and pay tuition dollars. Like, their magnet programs that have been up and running for a long time have never attracted a child to their school district from another school district, is what I was told. And that they're very expensive to run.
Joe.
Maybe because I missed last week, I feel like I'm just gonna be the skunk at the garden party and it's 8:30, so maybe that's why. But I feel like it's a little bit of a slap in the face to the Roxbury community to talk about like magnet schools or language immersion and all these things when we had to make that really difficult decision to take away their elementary school. And then we're gonna then put something there instead. That feels, and also I'm like well aware that we had major budget challenges and we have them again next year. So I also feel like it's kind of a, maybe not a slap in the face, but a little, it feels out of touch only to me. I'm only speaking as myself. It feels a little out of touch to talk about like adding to the budget or expanding a program when we know that we have another really challenging budget season coming and we had to make that really hard and horrible, that was really challenging decision last year. So I feel like very strange even talking about anything because we took away the elementary school. So why would we? I don't know. I guess that's sort of a question.
That financial parameter speaks to you.
That's
Yes.
Well,
Right.
and not just money, but like, I just feel like from an emotional level, if I was a family that lost our elementary school because it was, you know, for budgetary and like consolidation reasons, and then it's like, but then we're going to put in something else that we think, it doesn't sound like it's a revenue generator. I don't know, that just feels very sort of out
That's
of
why
touch.
you like, you advertise it, somebody says, I do want to run a daycare or something there, then it's
Well,
like.
then that, we
something
can't do
new.
that, though. We have to sell it to Roxbury, and if they don't want it, then we sell it to someone else to daycare.
One of the options was
No, we could rent it out.
a community center where we have an after-school program and there's a.
See, that's different. What
that's
Rhett was saying
different.
earlier sounds, if that's what Roxbury, that's great. I just feel like magnet, language immersion, that feels out of touch to me. Sorry, Rhett.
The presentation that we didn't include the current educational use, which is as an after-school program for Roxbury kids, including a number of kids who never attended, some kids who never attended RBS, many kids who chose not to attend UES. And I don't know if there's a way to really sort of, I think that you had some finances in
Would it be
there.
So
community
this,
center?
a community center after school.
Yeah.
With
This
that-
would be inclusive of what's currently going on, as I understood. what
Yeah.
you were
That would
saying.
include that.
Yeah.
And so that's a possibility that the board could decide on, which continues to be an educational use, and continues to be an after-school center. Potentially could even have a childcare center in it, which could bring revenue to the district as opposed to the town, potentially, which I don't know how much, and that's a hard thing to do. But is an interesting idea also, because I know I've heard some folks that are concerned that taking ownership, so, you know, just a couple of folks are concerned taking ownership of the building to the town without a good plan could be harmful. But, you know, asking, you know, the district to foot the bill also seems, you know, it's like a challenging task as well. So with an educational use, it's not as difficult an ask, I suppose. Not that we're making a decision on anything, but there, you know, it's, I'm just really pleased to see how happy people are with what's happening there now, because on our last meeting, it was a Wednesday and it had opened on a Tuesday. And it wasn't clear what it was gonna become or how much people would enjoy it, as it is to me now.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the options. So. Scott.
Libby, would it be possible for our next meeting in terms of like evidence to get like some projections based on the experience so far with the after-school program? Like, are we likely to lose a lot of money, a little money, make a little money, make a lot, I doubt we're gonna make a lot of money on it, but so that we can think about that as one of the potential components of a use. going
Yeah,
forward.
Christina put that together. I may have mentioned it last week, I may not have. It would, the after-school piece, just the after-school piece is approximately $80,000 to $90,000 would be added to our budget.
Plus maintenance of the building, right? So
Is
the
Yeah, we'd still be maintaining the
Yeah,
building,
so
which is
do
about
that.
$60,000.
Did that also consider the current mechanism for supporting families that's at the middle school?
It would be very
It
similar.
would be very similar.
Yeah,
so we're talking like $140,000 to like have that be a continued use.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christina ran those numbers for me already.
Just as it is right now. What you put in the community center slide as ideas had a lot more going on, like,
Could be the day, you could
Day-
rent it
daycare
out
during
to
the
a
day,
daycare. Yep, we could rent
So-
it out to a daycare. There would not be nothing that could preclude, I don't know if that's the right word, but I know that they've talked about moving the library in there. Sure, why not? You know, like there's lots of different things that could happen with that. And the more use that built, I just want to like put it out there so it's not, so everybody's knowledgeable. The more use means more maintenance costs. So,
And
Just-
administrative costs.
and administrative costs. Yeah, I think in the community center, I think I have it on that slide that you'd want to put some sort of building manager on there.
right,
To,
if there was stuff happening there all day long.
yeah, yeah. Who would represent, who would work for MRPS, you know, probably not a full-time position, I wouldn't imagine, but you'd want some sort of person running facility rentals and making sure that things get done and things are okay and all that kind of stuff.
So,
Which would add to the cost.
You have after-school enrichment, which the program that's currently running falls under that category. Are there other after-school enrichment programs, I don't know, like a snowshoeing club or something like that, where like Montpelier kids might like take advantage of the bus going down, snowshoe in the afternoon, and then their parents come pick them up?
There's nothing that would stop that from happening now. Yeah.
so this is making me think of what could help with the question of what is the financial obligation / tax impacts that the board will ask of the community, is if we could get any more specifics, like for the community center you have, it's unlikely that the revenue would equal or surpass the expenses. But if there was a way for us to see just like ballpark, like, well, we think it would cost this much annually to run it. And if the best ballpark for that is $1.5 million, because that's essentially the same kind of staffing as we would have had, or if it's more, then it would be good to know that. And then if it's possible for us to know, again, ballpark revenue, because I think that would help us answer the question of the financial piece.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so if you added a part-time person, let's say that's gonna be $40,000.
I'm not saying you have to answer it tonight. I'm
Yeah,
thinking like
just-
this is the,
For like
Yeah.
next week or next meeting.
Right.
And just to get some kind of clarity, it sounds like an email to Jody would be worthwhile, because that's an ask that hasn't been had.
Yeah.
I am satisfied with your relaying of the conversation with the superintendents regarding BOCES. Is the rest of the board satisfied, or do we want an email?
you
You're
shake your
good.
head, you say not satisfied or not email.
I am satisfied with that.
Is anyone dissatisfied? I mean, I guess I'm just curious, were these ever like legitimate options? Because it sounds like they never were, the Magnetype and the BOCES. That's where I think I've gotten tripped up on this, that this was something that was presented as, oh, this is something we could do. But now I'm hearing that because of lack of interest, it never really was. Is that how I should understand that?
I think that the board could tell me to say, push it. We want to do some sort of BOCES there, push it. Find one partner in the region to do that. And I could make an attempt to do that. I think the magnet schools is a legitimate question for the board. But it goes under the parameters also. That's the board's decision. That is not my decision to make. So I think it is only fair to the board to have those options so you can direct me into what you want to have happen and get feedback from community members in both towns as to which direction the board wants.
Yeah, I mean, if we get a stream of people next week saying, actually, we would like to pay $2 million extra to have foreign language that's important to us as a community, it at least it puts it out there. So that's, yeah.
My thinking in response to that question, Tim, is that I think all of these are legit options, and because any of them could happen, and we're working our way through a process we've never done before. So we're trying to figure out, how do we answer the question of how legit is a magnet school, or how legit is a BOCES?
Yeah, and I think,
But at present, I guess our understanding is that we would have no partners for any of them. Is that accurate?
As of right now, right, with the information that you've learned.
Yeah.
The information I have right now, there is very limited desire because of the location of the school. And
Okay.
that's the primary reason.
Well, I guess that is what it is then.
I might add, Tim, I do think a couple years ago, these were all kind of things that were swirling about what the district would at any point in time in the future think about. What would be an alternative use of that, for sure. And then I think the last 2 years have really have changed the financial and taxpayer ramification. I think it was very much of interest of folks, even I think when the merger was being discussed, like what are some neat things we could do? And so I don't think they're out of the realm. It's just the last 2 years has been a bit of a dial back on what we can do.
Yeah, no, I would echo that. I think if, 2 years ago, they were financially much more
Yeah.
viable than they are now.
I've said multiple times before budget season
Yeah.
last year that I would love to think about that building and what we could do, but the budget season has really changed
Changed a lot.
a lot of what we can
And the
do.
weights changed a lot.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And from my perspective as a Roxbury person, that conversation was threatening and dangerous. And it creates uncertainty, which creates instability, which creates the possibility of losing teachers, which creates the situation that we ultimately came to quite quickly, which in some ways, once the conversation happens, the faster it happens is maybe just, and very unfortunately, the best for the elementary school students, the teachers. I mean, that's something that I came to, but I don't know how many people agree to that. It's a tough conversation that I didn't, and I always wanted to shy away from.
Yeah, and I think also, just kind of going back to why they're in there, I think for the fairness of the community conversation, I mean, there are people who've been asking from day one, why not a magnet school? And I think, leaving that out of the conversation, at least, allows those people to ask those questions and kind of say we didn't consider it. It also allows us to answer some of those questions as part of the process. Do we have what we need? It's 8:45. Do we have what we need for October, 2nd?
So right now, I'll just say we've got our answer on regional interest, except for asking Jody if she thinks CVCC could use the building. We've asked for a little bit more ballpark revenue projections on the community center question. I don't know about any of the other ones. And expense projections on the community center. What was the one just above community center? Oh, central office. I think any expense projections on central office staff. As that option.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
So I was just recapping, and I have this in an email, but the things that we're asking you to do leaving this meeting are email Jody about seeing if CVCC could use the building, revenue projections for community center ballpark, expense projections for community center, and the central office staff option.
Okay.
Are we still pursuing the central office thing? That to me seemed like not really feasible. I don't want to make people do more work on it.
I guess I'm just trying to I'm fine if that's what the board says, if we want to narrow these options down tonight. I wasn't sure if that's where the board was at, so what we were trying to do was just guide the conversation instead of making any decisions.
I mean, I don't think we should narrow anything down tonight until we've gotten public input.
Right.
That said, I think we can say that the central office has some obvious problems, and unless public input changes it, I don't think it's worth instructing our administration to do a lot more work on that.
Oh, okay, that's fine with me. Okay.
Tabling?
Yes.
Yes.
What's our tabling conversation?
Yeah, that's at the Fall Festival. It's coming up next Saturday.
No,
And-
the 28th.
Right, next Saturday, not this Saturday,
Yeah,
next
yeah,
Saturday,
Coming
sorry.
Saturday, the fall.
That's
10 days.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, in a week and a half, on the 28th. And the board, this is a great opportunity for the board to be out and in the community, go to where the community is instead of always asking them to come to us. And so we have a table reserved, and we will be there. What I would love to do is have board members sign up for like a 2-hour shift to be at the table. And if we wanted to spend a little time tonight thinking about any specific questions we want to ask in the past, just to give you all a sense, we've asked things like, what do you think our priorities should be when we go, as we go into budget season? We've asked for general feedback. we've asked, Rhett, you've tabled a number of times with me. What are some other questions we've asked?
Well, we
have
talked
great
about priorities.
conversations. Yeah.
You know, we were doing the community outreach with Nathan's work. That was part of it.
Right.
Do we have any specific social emotional questions? I mean, I think it would just, we may have come to some priorities and then said, what do you think under these 3 priorities? Community outreach, social emotion. We could even ask that.
That's right.
You know, just academic.
How are we doing?
Yeah.
And these are our 3 priorities. How are we doing?
Yeah. And I would love to hear recommendations for improved community relations.
What can we do? Yeah. So that's one idea, is to lay out what our top 3 things are and just ask the community to give us feedback on how we're doing at them. Another, I was wondering if we wanted to use that time and space to get any community input on the question of the Roxbury Village School building. Another big topic of conversation that's been in the community for a while is the possibility of merging with Washington Central. We could say, what questions do you have about merging with Washington Central, about the possibility of merging? Or what thoughts? Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, just thought to spend a little bit of time tonight. I realize we're already over our planned time.
I have loved to ask kids what's going well for them.
Yeah.
That has been a wonderful thing to do and
Yeah.
see. I think that's.
I feel like longer lunch and recess would be.
Yeah.
Somebody, bring
Shorter
our pets to
days,
school. We got lots
longer
of feedback that
vacation.
we should be able to bring pets to school.
Pets to school, that's right.
So
Thank you for your
I'm
feedback.
going to be away, so I'm not gonna be able to table. I do think having like a QR code with a form that collects, so that the only opportunity is like to talk to people in the moment. Yeah, just multiple ways of gathering information, I think would be
Nice.
helpful, and I'm happy to set up that form
Yeah.
and QR code
That'd be
if that
great.
would be
Yeah.
welcome.
The high school kids at the farmer's market like 15 years ago in AP Statistics did some surveying where they had people put dots on, like colored dots on the issues that I forget what they were asking about, but it was pretty slick. And they gathered some feedback that way, so I'm put dots on things.
Super quick too.
Nice.
What would we be asking them to put dots on?
Like, what, I don't know, do you think we should merge with Washington Central? I don't know, whatever. Stuff like that.
You could do, what's the best way for the school board to communicate with the community and give choices?
Oh,
Dots would be one of the choices.
yeah.
Could literally be put a dot on a dot.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
Or what are your biggest priorities for the school budget?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I think getting questions on the school budget would be great.
Because we
I mean,
could
if you
put
use
options
dots,
out
you
there
have
and
to
then
put-
people,
yeah, you
yeah,
gotta
but
put
then,
options
then
out.
we could put an other and they could write it in and put a dot on their own.
Yeah, like select the tax rate increase.
Oh, Jake, don't.
Jake's gonna find himself in the don't take. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I was gonna
There is
say,
a dunk tank.
who is
Yeah,
gonna be the dunk
actually,
tank? I am gonna be in Maine, so
I have a retirement party that night, so I told Natalie I couldn't.
Oh, Jeff, I'll be there.
I would represent the board in the dunk tank.
Okay.
Talk to Natalie
Talk to
Ronald.
Natalie.
I'm not that,
I should
Okay.
ask her.
I'm not that popular, but maybe that's
Yeah,
a
Henry's
good
a-
I get on the dunk
you
tank.
don't have to be that popular.
There is the lineup on the door out front, but I'm sure they can fit, you can take my spot there, Rhett. I'm not in the lineup.
Okay, and then, but volunteers, I've just been hearing people who can't be there.
I'll be there.
Thanks, guys. All right, Rhett, thank you. I'll follow up with you on timing.
I will be there
Jake,
anyway.
and, oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, yes.
I'll check in with Lynn and see if she can. Miriam, how about you? I heard something down there.
I have a cross country meet in the morning, but it's 8:32, so I might be there with my team.
Oh, yeah, my kid's running in that. I'm gonna try and do both. I'm gonna go cheer him on and then I got it.
Yeah, I think I might try and get my team to go. Because we were supposed to, I don't know, Natalie really wanted us to go.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, you gotta come. It's so fun. The fall
Yeah.
festival is so fun.
How about you, Tim?
Can you join us?
I gotta check one thing on the calendar that's unclear to me, but I think so.
Awesome. And it doesn't have to be for the whole time. The festival goes from 12 to 4, but we can break it up.
Yeah, I should be able to make some time in there.
That's so great. I think we have what we need. We can
Awesome.
definitely work with this to get good input from, using this as an opportunity to get good input from the community. I'm gonna hit you up for that QR code for sure. I have no idea how to do that. Just kidding.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, draw little dots.
That's what Sharpies are for.
Yeah. See where it takes you. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Thanks, everyone.
Aye.